Professor David Betz, who is the Professor of War in the Modern World at King's College London. And he's really asking the question, is Western civilization sleepwalking into a civil war? And in particular, is that what's happening in Britain? Are we watching a collapse of Britain and descending into a civil war ourselves? Now, there's two ways to think of this. The first way is the obvious way. Anybody can look at society and say, yeah, I can see collapse all around. I can see societies failing all around. But of course, there is a far deeper, far richer intellectual way to look at this. And this is where Professor Betz comes in, because he has the ability and I would say the clarity and the intelligence to be able to dissect this in horrifying detail, just to lay the whole thing open. And these are an introduction to him and his top 3 sectors where he believes we are, as a society, descending into civil war.
Why you make this prediction that civil war is coming to Britain? What are the signs that in other countries have been the forebearers of civil war? And what are you seeing in British society now that suggests we are living in a similarly precarious moment?
The Civil Wars literature, with respect to its understanding of the causation of this thing, can be summarized, I think, reasonably fairly around the following 3 points. Factionalism is terribly dangerous. The particular sort of factionalism which is most dangerous is known as polar factionalism. Polar factionalism is where people are no longer disagreeing over particular issues per se, whether it might be feminism or abortion or death penalty or the like, where people have views on things that can be very strong, but they're differing on the basis of what they perceive to be the consensus view within their tribe, rather than on the issue per se. We are now in a state of polar, we in Britain, but not exclusively in Britain, I might say, in a state not just of factionalization, but of polar factionalization. Another distinctly important cause of civil wars in the estimation of the people who study and write about them is this concept of downgrading. Downgrading is a term which is effectively the academic way of describing the replacement narrative. It describes a situation in which a formerly dominant majority is losing its status or fears that it is losing its status in that society, in its own homeland, which is a very dangerous situation because formerly dominant majority, or a majority which is fearing the loss of its position, still has the wherewithal to form a mass movement and is highly incentivized also to action. So it's generally considered to be a very significant factor in the emergence of civil wars. A third element of causation is the loss of faith. Loss of faith specifically in the legitimacy, in the perceived legitimacy of normal politics. When people start to say, for example, that politics doesn't work or politics is broken, or to be sort of academic about it, that politics is no longer functioning as a solution to collective action problems, these are expressions of perception of a lack of legitimacy in that system.
Just to break down very simply those 3 areas, and I think we've all seen these in our society. The factionalization. When you see a political celebrity, one of the talking heads, and they're from the left or they're from the right, you instinctively already know where they fall on certain issues. So you can pick the issue, you can pick borders, you could pick abortion, you could pick any of these major issues that we have in society. And you already know where those people fall on that issue. And this is the tribal nature of something the internet has created, and we can all see that in our society. The second issue, bringing up the downgrading of society, there's a lot of people talking about replacement theory. There's a lot of people asking the question. Nobody understands why it's happening, least of all me. But it is there, and there is a feeling running through a lot of people. And this is why, one of the reasons why anyway, why Reform UK is and has been and will be so hugely successful, because this is a pervasive feeling that a lot of people in society are starting to feel. And I think he nailed that, the downgrading of society. And the third issue, the legitimacy, the causation, the loss of faith. And this isn't kind of a Nietzschean thing, God is dead, although that does play a role. We've abandoned Christianity, or largely abandoned Christianity in the Western world, and it's not going too well for us. And it seems like that trajectory, that change, that fork in the road, seems like it was a bad one for us to take generally. We turned away from God, and in some sense, God turned away from us. And, right at this moment, I will tell you, I'm an atheist. I'm not a religious person, but I can see the effects that the lack or the loss of Christianity in Western worlds is having a huge impact on us. But not only that, we've got the general legitimacy of various authorities within our society, not just the courts. I mean, look at the courts at the moment. The police, the civil service, local government, UK government, international organisations. You've got your NGOs and all of that, your UNs, Parliament, the news, the political parties. Does anybody believe anything anymore? Now, when I listen to David Betz and, how he describes what's happening, it really mirrors what I found on a completely different topic, which is called Game B. And Game B philosophy is, in essence, what Mr. Betz is talking about here. Game B essentially says that society as a whole has all of these things clumped on. So you have the way society is built up, particularly things like the courts, the police, the politicians, the news, all politics and all of that, the authorities in general. And we see bits of that literally snapping off and falling away. And we do not have a solution for this. We do not understand, as a group of people in Western civilizations, why the rot can't be stopped. And this has happened time and time and time again. When civilizations fall, this is what happens. And great civilizations crumble from within. You only have to look at Rome as a great example that everyone knows about. The gates were held open for the barbarians. And, I thought as I was listening to David Betz, and I thought he was brilliant, and, I really do like his stuff, that this is just another long-form introduction into the topic of Game B. Thanks very much for your time.